Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing another coaster chicken guide too, and this time we're looking at a park I hold very close to my heart. Growing up as a child, although our local park was Alton Towers, as you can probably imagine with living 20 minutes away, we used to go a lot. The other park we used to visit a lot during our school holidays, having a lot of family memories, was Blackpool Pleasure Beach. So let's go. Now it is a very historic park. It's been open since 1896 and even to today it still has roller coasters, some wooden coasters that are nearly 100 years old. Now the park itself does hold some amazing records for its rides. Some of those we will cover as we go along. But one of the brilliant things about Blackpool Pleasure Beach is it has a lot of rides for a lot of different thrill levels. Now, the park itself isn't massive, it's not a huge park, it is only 42 acres, but what it lacks in size it makes up for how much it manages to squeeze in such a small area. It's got a lot of rides. Now the downsides of having a lot of rides but not a lot of space is theming. It is very sparse when it comes to theming, but it makes up for it for all those records and rides. So with Blackpool having so many different attractions to get done, we do recommend planning your day in advance, and that means getting your tickets early. Now tickets are a bit unusual at Blackpool, where most parks you scan the ticket to get in and or show your ticket to get in, and that's kind of the end of it. With Blackpool you'll need to produce that ticket for every ride. So one of our big tips is to get it on your phone, get it print screened and get it saved as your home screen or your lock screen. It'll save your battery on your phone, means you haven't got to go rooting for it every time you get to a ride. Once we've gone through the kind of security and ticket area, we usually head straight for the UK's oldest ride, and that's at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and that's the Flying Machines. Flying Machines was made in 1904. That puts it currently at over 100 years old. And if you are interested in your rides and how they work, you can actually see the mechanism underneath the ride in the gift shop. So it's all windowed off. You can see the mechanism working as the ride goes round, which is really cool if you're into that kind of thing like I am. Now, also in this area is the other flat ride, Derby Racer. Essentially, it's just one really large carousel with 56 horses in 4 different rows. It's quite unique. Like I say, it's one of only 3 in the world, the other 2 located in the US. If you are into your adrenaline, you like going fast on these kind of rides, that furthest out row is the one for you. That one tends to feel like it's going the fastest. But if you are after just like a nice, peaceful family kind of carousel, try the ones in the middle. That's my tip for you there. Now, in this starting area as well, there is quite a big drop tower. It's called Ice Blast. It's not one I've ever done in the past. Like I say, for me, heights, drop towers, they are things as the coaster chicken I do avoid. So if you don't like heights, you don't like drop towers, you may fall into the same category as I am, and this one be one of those ones you avoid. Now, if you are one of those people that do enjoy drop towers, get on it. It's supposed to be a really good one. My wife loves it. Height requirements wise, you do need to be at least 132 centimetres to ride it. But like I say, that doesn't kind of rule everyone out in the family, just the smallest, and those, like I say, like me, who are scared of drop towers. If you have decided to brave the drop tower, bear in mind you're going to be doing a 60-metre drop at 80 miles per hour. It was actually the first drop tower in the UK. It is the second highest and the fastest in the UK as well. So there's some records for you. Like I say, you've seen a lot of records in this park. It does hold quite a lot of records. And like I say, even its drop tower has those records. So if you are going to brave it, let me know what you think of it in the comments. Also in this starting area, you have got an award-winning dark water ride experience in Valhalla. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about Valhalla today, unfortunately. Over the last few seasons, it has been closed while they're doing it up. It's going to change the ride significantly by the sound of it. So I don't talk too much because we don't know what's going to change. We don't know what's going to be the same when we get to do this experience later this year. But hopefully I'll be able to tell you more about that once it is open. Now we continue on past those early initial rides. We end up in an area with two fantastic dark rides. Very different themes. You've got the ghost train in one area, and then you've also got Alice in Wonderland on the other. So very different there. No kind of similar theme, but two brilliant dark rides nonetheless. Now the ghost train itself was actually the first of its type in the world. And it's where actually the name ghost train comes from. So if you've ever ridden a ghost train anywhere else, it owes its name, its ride time, to the Blackpool Pleasure Beach attraction. The ride itself is supposedly haunted as well, if you go for those kind of things. So bear that in mind, see if you can, if you feel a presence in there while riding, or if it's just the animatronics and the effects that get you. To me, it's a really good ride. When all the effects are working, it is brilliant. Like I say, each kind of area tells a little bit of its own scary story that you go through. And I've got to be honest, it is a favourite from childhood, really. If you are afraid of the dark or horror, it may not necessarily be for you. Like I say, it is very creepy. Some of the scenes are very scary. And like I say, a lot of people do say that it is supposedly haunted as well. So, you know what I mean? If it isn't for you, or if you've got kids, maybe want to avoid. Saying that, as a kid, I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. But I'm very much into my horror. If your kids are easily scared, what may be a better idea is just to head straight over to Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland features scenes from both the Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass stories. It's really cute, really well done actually. You drive round in Cheshire Cat cars, and I've got to be honest, even me as a grown adult, I enjoy this classic ride. It's definitely worth a ride every time we visit. Now, both of these dark rides do have the exact same height requirement of 117 centimetres. The next ride we head towards is the River Caves. It's another dark water ride, but with a totally different energy to Valhalla. And it's a much more relaxing, slow-paced, round-the-world style ride in which you travel in this boat around different areas of history. It's said to have inspired Walt Disney to create Pirates of the Caribbean. Apparently he rode it back in its early days, and it gave him the idea of Pirates of the Caribbean, and everyone knows how good of an attraction that is. So if you haven't ridden River Caves, that's an incentive to go and ride it right there, to see what kind of inspiration, see if you can think where he got his ideas from. Now, once we've finished in the River Caves, we head towards the latest dark ride at Blackpool, Wallace and Gromit's Thriller-matic. If you're a fan of the Aardman animation, whether it's the Wrong Trousers, Big Day Out, Curse the Were-Rabbit, you're really going to enjoy this one. The scenes are brilliant, especially the use of smell pods as well. I've got to be honest, it is suitable for the whole family. My only downside with this one is that it does get considerably large queues, which is something you don't tend to see at Blackpool at all, really. But it does get long queues, and unfortunately the station isn't anything to look at, unfortunately. You're going to be sitting in a boring cattle pen queue for quite a while on busy days. It is an attraction I would recommend doing early on to avoid those queues. There are a few other rides as we go through that I will kind of mention as things to do early on. But yeah, that's definitely one of them, because unfortunately it does get big queues, and the queue line isn't anything exciting at all. Now, usually with these theme parks, I always kind of recommend the family kids areas if you've got children only. But with Blackpool, the kids area, Nickelodeon Land, is very well themed. It's probably the best themed area in the park. Okay, it does have 2 roller coasters as well, and a few decent little flat rides as well. Now, the first coaster in this area is called Blue Flyer, and it was made by Philadelphia Toboggan back in 1934. It is a very old roller coaster, and if you've never been on one, I definitely recommend giving it a go, okay? Like I say, it is a children's wooden coaster, so all it's really consisting of is a few bunny hills and a tunnel. It's nothing intense. It's quite a nice, peaceful one, really. But it's very unique in the fact that because it is old, it is very classic. The way you sit in the coaster itself with the padded seats is unique. Watching them kind of manually operate this brake it is really unusual. If you've not been on an old classic coaster, give it a go. See what you think. And this one, like I say, with it being a smaller one, it isn't as rough as some of the others at Blackpool, some of the older ones that can be very rough. So it is definitely worth checking out, especially if you've got kids or you need that coaster credit. The other coaster in this land, the Nickelodeon Streak, is slightly more intense. It's much higher. It's got a lot more drops. It's a bit more thrilling, but still suitable for all the family, okay? It is, once again, an old coaster, being built in 1933, and it does actually use the lift hill from an old coaster at Blackpool, the Velvet roller coaster, which was built in 1909. So, like I say, a lot of history with this ride. Like I say, currently it's been repainted, it's been themed to Nickelodeon Land, as the Nickelodeon Streak. Like I say, it's family friendly, isn't as rough as a couple of the others there, so it is worth getting on. And it, like I say, it is quite a thrilling experience, okay? If you don't like kind of the old wooden rickety kind of things, this might cause you a couple of fears. If you're not a massive fan of heights, it might be a bit of an issue, but I enjoy it. I think it's quite a good little experience, and I think you should definitely give it a go. So in this land as well, you've got quite a lot of the standard family flat rides that you'd find at a lot of the other parks, only these have all got a Nickelodeon theme, and so they're based on all the different properties that you'd find on the Nickelodeon channel. You've got a Zamperla Disco based on Avatar, you've got a Splash Battle based on SpongeBob, there's a Fairly Odd Parents ride, there's a balloon ride based on Dora the Explorer. You've got a drop tower based on SpongeBob as well. There's a water ride, so there's got a classic log flume style ride based on the Rugrats as well, which is quite nice on a warm summer's day to cool off. But yeah, you've got quite a lot of really well themed rides in this area. There is a stage for meet and greets as well. I've seen in the past that you can meet characters like the Paw Patrol at the moment, last time we were there. I think Fairly Odd Parents have been there. You can see quite a lot of your favourite Nickelodeon characters. In regards to shops, there is a really well themed Nickelodeon shop in the land, and a pizza pasta as well in there if you're looking for something to eat. Upon exiting Nickelodeon Land, I think it's time we talk about one of my favourite roller coasters at Pleasure Beach, and that is Avalanche. Now, Avalanche is a steel bobsled roller coaster. It is the first and only of its kind in the UK, which personally I think is a real shame. I think it's one of my favourite roller coasters in the UK for how unusual it is. Now, Avalanche was developed by Mack Rides and it opened in 1988. They actually got Eddie the Eagle Edwards to open the ride, and they did sponsor the UK bobsled team in the 1988 Winter Olympics for publicity as well, donating some of the ticket sales to the team. Now, like I said before, Avalanche is one of my favourite roller coasters at the park. Probably one of my favourites in the UK, to be fair. It's a nice, unusual experience. Like I say, there's nothing like it in the UK. You sit in a toboggan, okay, in a very traditional way. You do feel like you are one of those Olympic athletes competing in the Winter Olympics. Well, I do anyway. Very unusual seating. Yeah, up quite a big lift hill. It can be quite uncomfortable depending on who you're sitting with. Okay, but then that adrenaline you get on the way down as it picks up speed towards its max speed of 50 miles per hour. It's a great thrill. It's a great thrill. To me, accessible to all, really. It's one of those rides that isn't too intense, not too scary. If you're not a massive fan of heights, going up that lift hill at the start can be a little bit iffy. The speed itself, like I say, if you're not into your speed, it can be a bit of a scary one, I guess. But I enjoy this. I think the theming in the station's bob on, and I love the experience. Definitely worth giving it a go. Now, the downside to this ride is its throughput isn't brilliant, okay? Because of the bobsleds, because of the setup of the ride itself, they don't get a lot of people in it, don't get a lot of people going on it at a time. Like I say, it's got 3 trains, can only ever run the 2 trains at a time. Each train holds 14 riders at max, so you can imagine you're not getting a lot of people in it. So if you are looking to ride this one, I'd always say try and get in there early, because this one does get the big queues, because like I say, the throughput isn't brilliant. Now, across the way from Avalanche is another roller coaster to me that shows just how iconic a park Blackpool Pleasure Beach has been over the years, and that's Revolution. Now, Revolution was the first ride in Europe to be a fully inverting steel roller coaster. And like I say, Blackpool were the first park to introduce one like that. Like I say, now they are quite common in all the big parks, but Blackpool pushing the lines there, and they were the first to implement one. Now, Revolution is an Arrow Development shuttle roller coaster. Does a full loop, and then once it gets to the end, goes backwards and does the loop backwards. There's not a lot to it, but does it really need to have a lot when what it does is so good? So with Revolution being one of Blackpool's thrill rides, it does have a higher height limit than some of the other ones. So with this one, you need to be 127 centimetres or taller to ride. Okay, so around about that 1.2 metre height requirement that you get at some of the other parks for some of the more family thrill rides. Located just behind Revolution is one of the world's most unique roller coasters, a 3-tracked racing roller coaster called Steeplechase. Now this one itself, you sit on the back of a horse, okay, and you race round on one of 3 tracks against 2 other horses. The ride itself was actually opened by a horse in 1977, and that was Grand National winner Red Rum. So the height requirement for Steeplechase is 127 centimetres or taller, put it in the same bracket really as Revolution. Now I don't think that's because of its thrill level, I don't think that's anything to do with thrills. I literally just think that's because of the ride vehicle. Unlike most roller coasters where you're kind of sat in something and strapped down either by a leg restraint or over the shoulder restraint, this one is literally you sitting on a metal plastic horse with a seatbelt round you. So I think that's why they require a larger height limit than you'd standard think just by looking at the ride. The ride itself isn't intense, it's not massively thrilling or anything like that. There are a few bumps in the road and some good turns, but yeah, nothing fast, nothing intense. What is quite a nice experience if you manage to kind of time it right and have like a friend or family member on each of the other horses. You get quite a fun experience racing around the tracks. Doesn't happen very often though, so it is really hard to gauge where you're going to be ending up sitting and against who, unfortunately. Now, throughput on this ride is pretty tough. Like I say, each horse can sit 2 people at max, which means ultimately each race is only going to get 6 people around the track. So following on from Steeplechase, you come towards the next big record-breaking roller coaster at Blackpool, and probably its most famous ride, the Pepsi Max Big One, or as it's known now, just the Big One. Now, this one is a steel roller coaster, and when it opened in 1994, was the tallest and steepest roller coaster in the world. Now, it may not be held in that title now, but it still is the tallest roller coaster in the UK currently. I know obviously Thorpe Park have recently announced a new coaster that will beat that, but currently still holds the title of tallest coaster in the UK. Now, you know a roller coaster is tall when it has to have warning beacons at the top of the lift hill for planes, and this one has to have 2 on each of its lift hills. Now, it reaches top heights of 213 feet, and that first drop is going to be a drop of 205 feet at an angle of 65 degrees. Now, it does hit a maximum speed as well of 74 miles per hour, and so making it a really fast roller coaster. Like I say, it is one of the big thrill coasters at Blackpool. As such, it has a height requirement of 132 centimetres or taller to ride. Now, if you've come off the big one and you're still searching for thrills, there's a couple more rides in that kind of area that I would definitely recommend. One of them is the newest roller coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Icon. Icon is a multi-launch steel coaster created by Mack, and it was opened in 2018 at the park. Now, the ride itself is stunning to look at. I take a lot of time when I go to Blackpool getting pictures and videos of this thing running about. Like I say, it does hold a record here at Blackpool. It's the UK's first multi-launch coaster with its 2 launches. So the ride itself starts with an incredible launch into a mist-filled tunnel. You come out into a top hat, you got some overbanked turns, you then hit that downward barrel roll. The hang time on that is incredible. You then go into the second launch, followed by a junior Immelman, with some more bank turning before reaching the brake run. Now for me, this ride is probably the most intense ride I've done up to this point since I kind of been put off roller coasters all those years ago. It's a beautiful ride, takes my breath away, and I've got to say, look, if you are heading to Blackpool, this is the one ride you definitely need to ride. I've got to be honest, as a coaster chicken, this one puts me off sometimes. I've got to be honest, I do chicken out of this as much as I do ride it. Like I say, the speed, the height, the inversions, they all kind of do trigger me in anxiety-wise in several different ways. I've got to be honest, it is a battle. Sometimes I don't do it, sometimes I will. But like I say, it's definitely worth giving a go if you can overcome those fears just for that ride. Recently, this year, they did just open it up as Enzo. So the back seats, which were previously for larger guests, they've been opened up now as spinning. Okay, so kind of echoing the kind of Mac Extreme spinners like Ride to Happiness. You can pay extra £15 to take a ride in a spinning seat at the back. Now, I haven't actually had the chance to experience that yet. Hopefully on next trip I will, and I'll be able to give you a kind of understanding review for a coaster chicken, what it's like. I've heard mixed reviews, I've got to be honest. Some people saying it's great, some people saying it doesn't spin that much, some people saying it's not worth the price. But like I say, I can't pass judgment myself, not done it yet. The height requirements for Icon, you've got 130 centimetres or taller to ride. That's every seat apart from the back seats. Now the back seats are modified slightly. They are intended for larger guests, and the kind of seats I tend to have to sit in when I ride Icon. You need to be 150 centimetres or taller to ride those ones. Like I say, they're designed for bigger guests, like myself, so you do need to be taller as well. The other intense experience you can take in this area is a Gerstlauer Skyfly. Okay, now this one you can make as intense as you want. You've got the control really, you can make it spin around. It's sponsored by Red Arrows. Okay, it stands at 72 feet tall, and like I say, you're basically in control of this flying pod, and using the controls you can make that spin. It's always a joy to watch, I've got to be honest. I always enjoy kind of queuing up and watching this one to see different people handle it different ways. It's always interesting to see the kind of person I imagine I would be on the ride, just clinging on to dear life, hoping it doesn't spin at all, trying to keep it as straight as possible. Then you've seen the real daredevils trying to get it to spin as much as possible, and watching how many times they go upside down. It's not something I currently ride, but like I say, that's because I don't like heights and I don't like inversions. So with that, we've now covered the back of the park, we've looked at the front, we've finished one whole side. Before we look at the final side of the park, with quite a few rides still to do, we're going to talk about a subject close to my heart, and that's food options. Now, unfortunately, at Blackpool, there aren't many great options, I'm not going to lie to you. The first thing to bear in mind, packed lunches, you can't bring them in. So where I'd usually say, oh, that's a nice place, or this is a nice place to take a picnic, not able to. Okay, any food, whether it's snacks, drinks, full meals, you won't be able to bring anything like that into the park. You'd need to either put that in a locker outside or store it in your car or anything like that. That's a real shame as well, because the food options inside the park aren't anything to celebrate. I'm going to be honest, we really struggle with food options at Blackpool. There isn't a lot at all. Like I said before, there is that pizza pasta restaurant in Nickelodeon Land. Every visit we've ever made, it's been really busy in there, queues out the door, so we've never actually ate in there. If you have and you enjoy it, please let me know in the comments. But like I said, we don't tend to go in there because every time we've been there, there's massive queues. We tend to end up in a Burger King at the back of the park. It's a very substandard Burger King, you know what I mean? Everything very normal, what you'd find in a normal Burger King, apart from the price being a bit more expensive. And Burger King isn't cheap to begin with. We did discover quite a nice place on our last visit called Coasters. Weird way to describe it, I guess. It's next to Icon, serves things like jacket potatoes, wraps, stuff like that. The food was nice for what it was. There was nothing fancy, but I would eat there again. It also came with brilliant views of Icon coming into the station, so I would recommend that if you aren't massively bothered about what you're eating. Quite plain, quite standard food. It's a good place to go. You can't go wrong, I guess, with a jacket potato or a sandwich. There are quite a lot of these pop-up stalls around that sell things like burgers and donuts and hot dogs. There is a weird one on the corner that sells fish cakes, all the weird mussels and cockles, all that kind of stuff that you'd get at the seaside. So I guess that is traditional, but it's not something I'd ever eat. It might sound controversial, but like I say, I've just never really had an amazing food experience at Blackpool. Please let me know in the comments if you have and what you tend to go for, because I would like to find something nice to try and a go-to place. I think it's always important to have some great food options at theme parks. I just think, for me, Blackpool is lacking in that. Now, one ride to avoid after you've had a meal at Blackpool would be Infusion. Now, Infusion is an inverted steel roller coaster at the park. It's a Vekoma SLC steel looping coaster, and it does hold quite an interesting record at Blackpool. It wasn't originally built for Blackpool. It actually originated at Southport, but when that park closed, they moved it to Blackpool Pleasure Beach, where it is the first SLC, the first Vekoma SLC to be entirely suspended over water. Now that means, as an enthusiast, you can get some absolutely incredible pictures of this ride. I've got to be honest, as a coaster chicken though, it's not something I feel like I'd be doing anytime soon. Now what puts me off as a coaster chicken is those 5 inversions. I've got to be honest, with any kind of inverted coaster, I'm always a bit nervous, you know what I mean? Not having anything to put your feet on, you hanging down below with no tracks below you, is one of those things that I do struggle with. I talked previously about my struggles on Vampire. Now this one, obviously with the inversions, seems a lot more intense than that. Like I say, it's got 5 inversions. It's got a height of 109 foot as well, so if you're not a fan of heights, this one might not be for you either. Like I say, if you don't like the feeling of having nothing underneath you, especially when looking below you is water, might not be for you. It's definitely not for me. But I'm sure there are plenty of people that do love the ride. Now, to ride this one, you do need to have a height of 132 centimetres or above. And there is a max height as well with this one, with it being an invert, and that's 200 centimetres, okay? So you need to be at least 132 centimetres to ride, but no taller than 200 centimetres, okay? So from one end of the thrill scale to the other, we've got the Pleasure Beach Express. Now on a quieter day, I always like to get a good ride on the Pleasure Beach Express. You get some absolutely incredible views of the park. With Pleasure Beach being quite a small park, managing to pack so much in, all the rides and attractions are grouped quite close together. So as you're going round on this train, you're going to see all the rides interacting with each other. It's a brilliant experience, really. You can get some absolutely gorgeous shots in. And there are plenty of things that you'll see on the Pleasure Beach Express that you wouldn't be able to see without going on that ride. There are bits of theming that you wouldn't know existed if you hadn't been on it. If you get the right person as well driving the train, they make the experience with their positivity and interaction with the guests. Now, once you get off the train, if you've had time to do it, it's time to do the Big Dipper. Big Dipper itself is a wooden roller coaster. Like I say, it's an old one, so if you're not a fan of kind of the old rickety rides, that gives you a bit of fear. This may not be for you. Now, as the name suggests, the Big Dipper is going to have some sizable dips. Okay, so if you're not a fan of those drops, not a fan of heights, might not be the ride for you. Like I say, it is an old rickety wooden ride. So if once again, wooden coasters or old coasters give you the heebie-jeebies, it may not be for you. But it is quite a good family thrill ride. To ride, you do only need to be 117 centimetres or taller, so it's accessible to quite a lot of people. And I always enjoy a good ride on this classic. So that brings us on to the final roller coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. It's a golden oldie there. It is the Grand National. Now, the Grand National is a wooden roller coaster built in 1935. It is a racing coaster, and it's one of two of the only surviving Mobius loop roller coasters made of wood. Now, a Mobius loop roller coaster gives the impression of two dueling coasters, two racing coasters. Basically, there's one continuous track that is shared by both trains. What happens on each ride, one of those trains does half the run, and obviously the other one does the other half of the run. Just basically means that each train will end up in the different side of the station at the end of each of its runs, and it completes the full circuit after 2 runs. Like I said before, there is only one other surviving wooden Mobius loop coaster, and that one is found in America. Now, the Grand National itself, it's quite a thrilling roller coaster. That's kind of judged by its height requirement of 132 centimetres or above to ride. It has some really big drops. Height-wise, 62 foot, but those drops do feel a lot bigger, especially for how rough this ride can be. It is a Grade 2 listed building, which means it has a lot of history to it. Like I said before, it's based on the famous British horse race, the Grand National, and you'll see signs throughout the ride indicating that certain parts of the race, things like Beecher's Brook, Valentine's, Canal Turn, and so yeah, lightly themed, but themed nonetheless to this event. Height requirements on the ride, 132 centimetres and above to ride. It is quite an intense ride for what it is. If you're not a fan of big drops, this one isn't going to be for you. If wooden roller coasters terrify you, yeah, this is definitely not for you. It does feel like an old ride. You can feel it on every bump. It has recently had a retrack. I haven't actually managed to kind of get on it, but they are limited with what they can actually do with it being Grade 2 listed. So I've got to be honest, I can't see it of changing much. It's still going to be a bit of a backbreaker, I think. So if you aren't looking for something that's going to give you pain, might be one to avoid. So we've covered all the major rides at Blackpool Pleasure Beach. There's a couple of things to experience if you're looking to get away from the thrills. So you've got a Chinese puzzle maze, for example. There's an optical illusions area, which has got a mirror maze and a haunted swing to try out as well, if you are looking for something a bit different. I've got to be honest, it is such a big park that there are rides that I've got to be honest, I've never even been on. There's a Dodgems, for example. There's another carousel towards the back that I've just never experienced. I'll be honest, if you take long enough, you've done all the major ones, you'll probably spot something you've never seen before, worth trying out. Now, Pleasure Beach itself isn't known for its live shows. It doesn't really tend to have any as part of your park admission. There is an arena in there that shows things like the Hot Ice Show, and I think they have magicians and live acts every so often, but that is a separate paid event. If you were to go in there, it isn't part of your theme park ticket. Apart from that, there is a water fountain show in the middle of the park that you get throughout the day. But that's really it, really, for any kind of shows. Like I say, you get the character meet and greets in the Nickelodeon land as well. So I think what Blackpool lacks in entertainment and food and drink options, it more than makes up for in rides and the very experience you get, the atmosphere at the park. Gotta be honest, it's a lovely place, steeped in so much history, and there's so many great experiences to be had. Creates a lovely little seaside atmosphere as well. Every trip we've ever been to, we've loved. I mean, like I said before, we haven't done everything. We haven't managed to ride everything we'd like to. Hopefully we get some more done on our next trip. And that's got to be very soon, really. With Valhalla opening, I'd urge you to definitely get there once that reopens. Before it closed, it was one of the best dark water rides I've ever experienced, and it's won awards for it. Now, that wraps up another episode of Coaster Chicken Guides 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've had some tips and got a bit of information on what to do and help to plan your next trip to Blackpool. If you've got any questions, anything you'd like to discuss any further, please like, share, subscribe and get commenting. I'd love to hear your opinions on the park. But thank you, goodbye, and see you on the other side.